welcome back to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always with my co-hosts Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion. And we have another game recap episode for you guys today, sponsored by Cahaba Brewing Company. Shout out to Cahaba. And reminder, just in a few weeks, October 19th, we are going to have a watch party as UAB plays South Florida. So come on down to Cahaba Brewing Company in just a few weeks to watch the game with us. But today we're going to spotlight their Cahaba Blonde. Everybody knows the Cahaba Blonde, solid, best blonde in the state. So definitely, if you have not checked out Cahaba's beer, go on down to the tap room. You can go to cahababrewing.com to look and see what they have on draft right now. Also, they have a cocktail menu. So if you don't like beer, they've got special cocktails. So go to cahababrewing.com and check them out. But thank you to Cahaba for sponsoring this podcast. Listeners, just a fair warning, we are recording this Sunday around lunchtime. So after the game last night, obviously you all know UAB lost 41-18 to the Navy midshipmen. We all three agreed that, hey, we might not want to discuss this game until Wednesday and just do combined episodes from now on. But a lot of you listeners, a lot of our hardcore listeners reached out and said that you all want a recap episode. And we respect that so much. We have a lot of loyal followers to the Blazer Victory podcast. And we thought that y'all definitely deserve to hear our thoughts. Not just on the game, but the post-game comments that were made. And it's available on YouTube. Go watch the whole post-game presser. It's on the UAB Athletics YouTube channel. So here we are today. Obviously, 41-18, terrible showing. There's no way around that. There's no way to spin this positive. 41-18. UAB coming off of the bye week and off of a good performance at Arkansas. Give all the credit to Navy. I'm sure we'll have some Navy listeners or watchers on our YouTube. Shout out YouTube. Hey, follow us at Blazer Pod on YouTube, our YouTube channel. Link in the description. So click on it. I don't care if you ever watch us. Just go subscribe. Get those numbers up. But we appreciate it all. But as I was saying, like with Navy, that is one heck of a good football team. Coach Newberry, that offense especially, light years better from last year to this year. Horvath was as good as advertised. Texa was as good as advertised. But the focus on this episode will be primarily on UAB's performance against Navy. This is the second time this year that UAB has gotten blown out by another team, FBS team. Go back to the ULM game, 32-6, terrible performance. We had some promise against Arkansas. We said, hey, maybe UAB, we'll just throw that game out the window. But Navy 41-18 off of a bye week, and this is how we perform? I don't know. This, guys, help me. Darian, Jimmy, it is not a good look, especially it was on ESPN2. We had a bunch of good recruits in the house for this game. I don't know what the deal is. And then, we can get into the post-game comments from Trent Dilfer too. But I don't know. Where do y'all want to go? Do y'all want to talk about the post-game comments first or talk about the actual game first?
We can start with the game. We can go in chronological order. As the game went on, I watched less and less anyway. But I don't know, man. It just seemed like, I know the weather was up and down. I didn't go to the game because I didn't want to expose my kids to possible bad weather. I have a baby. I'm trying to be responsible. So it's been enough sickness going on. So I'm like, man, I'm going to be careful and just watch it from the house. But it's something about this bad weather that was just like, man, it just didn't feel good. I was like, I don't know, man, because it just made me thinking of ULL last year. and how we had bad weather, and how we got thrashed, you know. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Let me get that bad thoughts out of my head. We had the Smile a Mile jerseys on, which we've been horrible in. You know, I love the cause behind them, but our play hasn't been good on the field. Um, we start off horrible. We start off, we move the ball some, we get the ball first, we move it some, but it's not consistent, right? And then what was the real indicator was they were getting pressured with three men. Three men. We talked about this on the podcast. That's the crazy thing. We were saying like, hey man, they can get pressured with three men, and it's a wrap. Like, I don't see what you can do. Well, they showed that, and then was it the first drive we had the fourth down?
Yep.
The
Fourth and 4, empty
Fourth
set,
and
and
3
they
sack.
rushed. And then they rushed 3, and then get to Zeno in like 2 seconds.
Just three. It was 3, or I think it probably was like a delayed man. That probably came a delayed fourth man. It doesn't matter. 3, 4. It doesn't matter. I was like, yeah. And then it was funny because we had this same little scenario, this conversation. But I would say from that distance, it probably would have been like a 50-some yard field goal.
In the wind too.
Yeah, in the wind. So it's kind of like you're in no man's land. I really wanted to avoid no man's land. So when it was 34, I get the call. I get the call of running the ball, you know, because you're saying that, hey, get what you can. We're going to see what position we're going to be in on fourth down. I don't know. I don't know what look. I can't tell you. Like, the running play looked kind of stale. Like, I felt like Lee BB was like the only effective really runner we had the whole game. Again, I don't know is Armani Goodwin, has he been injured? I know he got in toward like when the game was out of hand. I thought we had this whole 3-man running back rotation thing that was gonna go on. Haven't seen any semblance of that at all. Again, I don't know what's going on in practice or with these players' bodies. It's so hard to know. That's another thing. I feel like when you don't win, everything comes to the surface, right? You can be like, it's trash in the stadium, or like you can just get mad at everything, right? So let's just bring it up. Like, I don't know anything about who's injured, how severe the injury is. There's like you don't know anything here at UAB. I know other programs, some programs have the same problem, but we were led to expect that we were going to get one thing from this running back unit. We really haven't gotten that, especially with Goodwin. I don't even know. I'm saying like, oh, so is he going to just like redshirt this year? You know, I don't know. But anyway, I think that was Jacobs that we had running that ball on that third down call. Stuff, no game. And that was another thing. It was like when I started seeing that they moved the ball, every play, it was positive. Almost every play, I was like 5 yards, 7 yards, 21 yards, 7 yards, 6 yards. It was like no matter what. And here we go. We'll probably get like a 6-yard gain, couple that with a negative 3-yard loss. Like they got so many negative plays on us. And if you want to see a indicator of how the game is going to go, look at what team is getting consistent penetration, consistent pressure. No matter what they send, blitz, 3-man, doesn't matter. They're stopped. You're like, when it seems like we're trying to turn our way through the game, just trying to grind it out. And when they're like, run this play, it seemed like anything they're just picking out the hat, just, you run this working. Okay, this worked. Hell, throw a 70-something yard bomb. Oh, that works. Like, we can do anything. Run on the outside, run on the inside, run with the fullback, quarterback. Doesn't matter. It worked. So at one point I had tweeted out, I was like, forget a field goal, forget forcing a punt. Can we force them to kick a field goal? Every play that they were running, no, every drive that they were having, they were scoring touchdowns. And then we couldn't really get nothing going. Like, I don't know. Offense look. I'm kind of going because everything just looks bad right now. What has happened to our offense? I can say that our offense, we talked at the beginning of the year on this podcast, you can go back. We'll be like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen with defense. We know that we have our offense, though. We thought that, like, yeah, man, of course, our offense is good. Dude, our offense has been horrible. Horrible. You know, I don't know what happened in Arkansas game, but that's the Navy game showed that was an anomaly, and that it was a kind of a, I don't want to say fluke because guys put in hard work and practice, and you go out there and you execute, but I don't see how. I don't know. This has just been a wildly inconsistent team going back to last year. We would have these moments of hope, like Tulane and Georgia, like, man, we are this and that, and then you have those the ULL games and the ULM games. Like, what is that? And then we have I don't know. It's just really, really inconsistent. And I thought that North Texas game at the end of the year probably was the perfect summary. We went against a team that we were probably on par with, and it was wildly inconsistent. I thought we were going to win on the road, and we lost. You know, two wildly inconsistent teams, and we managed to out consistent them, right? And we get to here, and I don't even want to. It don't even matter going into the details of the game. We're just an inconsistent team, super undisciplined, whole bunch of penalties. You know, just was not a good showing at home. Just not. There's no way to kind of it's not no way to fluff it. And if anybody want to say something about like, oh, this is negative, this is criticism, this is reality. This is what's being shown on the field. Don't try to spin it as to you're being negative on the team. What have I said that's been negative or personal? Except that we looked like trash on the field. The players should tell you that, like, nah, that was a bad showing, because it was. I don't want anybody to try to spin nothing, try to put us in the spin zone, or try to make us seem like we weren't behind. We aren't behind this team and staff, because we are. But we finna be real. And if we just talking about the game right now, just the game right now, we looked horrible offensively. We looked horrible defensively. Shout out to Noah Grant. You know, Noah Grant did his thing. I think only player that really flashed to me was Kelvin Hill on defense. I think Kelvin Hill is a real dude. Hopefully we can hold on to him, because if a P4 is probably looking like that dude can play. That dude is good. Shout out to Iverson Hooks. I know it's been a long road to recovery. He was able to catch him a 39-yard bomb. But other than that, you know, another inconsistent game from an inconsistent team. And that's what I look forward to. From now on, all I look forward to is inconsistency, to be real.
Yeah, Darian said it best. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a little hard to come on and talk about this. It's one thing to, as a fan, to be able to just have the ability to absorb it and kind of step away from it, if you will, like mentally kind of exit from reality. But then we are choosing to come on here and speak on the record about what our thoughts are. And so, you know, it's not the funnest thing in the world, but I think John said it earlier, was that we have so many great fans and great listeners, and this is 100% about y'all. Like, so first and foremost, 100% about y'all. But I mean, Darren hit a lot of the stuff about the game in particular. He talked about the first drive and the situation, the failed fourth down attempt. And I think more telling, after the failed fourth down conversion, allowing for Navy to march down the field, we had the costly penalty. I think it was 3rd and 1. We got called for defensive pass interference, 15 yards. Shortly thereafter, Teska scored, and you know, right then it's 7-0, and Navy, whom brought a good contingency, I think most of which were over by John, you know, were loud. And so
they were trying to get me from last year. They're trying to get me from last year in Annapolis.
That's right. That's right. So I mean, you could see the Navy fans, you could hear them, and then Navy gets you in a situation early where now you're down a possession, and then they're up 7-0, and their fans who traveled well are hype, and you know, there was way too many penalties. That's been a theme all season long. We'll talk about it in a second. I think it was 11 penalties for over 100 yards, several of which were pre-snap, some of which were after the plays were over, right? And then there was just, there was some like weird stuff going on. Even when you think about the kick return game, special teams for UAB has been largely good this season, especially when you compare to the year prior. But looking even at kick return, like UAB had someone new returning kicks. Don't know where our guy Ryan Pepins is, if he's dealing with an injury or what happened there, but had someone new. And, looking at the kick return in particular, I think it was on the first one where he chose to take it out of the end zone and return it. He got stuffed at the 13-yard line. Later, the next one, there was a bobble of the catch, near fumble. And then another one later where they caught the ball at the 6, returned it 9 yards to the UAB 15. And so we're talking about the field position battle, and that was a step back as it relates to that. Turnover margin, again, I'll hit on some of the stuff here in a second, was a concern. We talked about being disciplined, and we talked about not turning the ball over and how important those things are. And before anyone says anything, of course, those things are important every single game, but they're even more important against a team that doesn't turn the ball over, and they didn't, and that is disciplined, and they were much more disciplined than us. They steal possessions, they hold the ball, and they take care of the ball, and those leads become insurmountable. And now what they're doing offensively just makes it so much more difficult. But if I may, this morning I was sitting back trying to think like kind of high level about some stuff, and I was sharing these with John before the game, or before the podcast. UAB's played 3 games this season, which is 12 quarters against FBS competition, and they've been outscored by the opponent in 10 out of those 12 quarters. They've only outscored their opponent one time, and that was the first quarter against Arkansas, and there was another quarter in which it was neutral, and that was against Louisiana Monroe. So if this is just a quarter-to-quarter game, UAB is consistently underperforming against FBS-level competition. And I think I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, just how the Louisiana Monroe game hurt so much because you start forecasting, you've got the game against Arkansas, then you have the bye, and just to look how long it may be before UAB gets another win based on the schedule. And at the time, it was like, hey, we're going to go basically a month without having really an opportunity to win a game by a week at Arkansas. And so it is September 29th. It's been exactly 30 days since UAB's won a college football game. And it's been 316 calendar days since UAB has beat a FBS opponent. That would be Temple on November the 11th, November the 18th of 2023.
Say that again, bro.
It's been 316 calendar days since UAB has defeated an FBS opponent, which would be November the 18th, 2023, at home against Temple. So if anyone is like thinking, and of course, there's a lot of calendar days in which it was the off season. So, right, I understand that. I'm just saying, like, it's been a long time since we've had the satisfaction of a Blazer victory versus an FBS opponent. And we are thirsting for that. We are desiring for that. That is part of the reason why we are upset, because you get so excited all offseason, and we promoted the hell out of this roster and this team. And we believed it. And despite what we saw last year. And now it's just we're waiting. And you look at the next couple of games. Tulane, we ain't going to be favored in that one. At Army, we ain't going to be favored in that one. At South Florida, we ain't going to be favored in that one. I don't even know what date the Tulsa game is. I mean, is that late October, November? But this is just going to get more agonizing if we don't get a victory.
Hey, Jimmy, you also know what's sad is like you saying we ain't going to be favored. I just saw UConn put the beats on Buffalo, I believe.
I
know that's way down there. I know that was when we was looking at like, all right, we can definitely get that one. Now I'm like, But you let the season play out how it may. You let whatever take over. Who knows, man? Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. This is a wildly inconsistent team, right? So I don't know what's gonna happen with this team. I'm done predicting. Like, don't ask me about a prediction. I don't know because this team is just wildly inconsistent, and I can't put my finger on it. So John, what's your thoughts on everything?
Well, John, let me share this real quick. Just again, a few more stats just to kind of close this out. Is so Darian talked a little bit about the running game earlier. Looking at the UAB offense in particular, UAB passing game, we talked about it, has fallen off. They're averaging about 85 less yards per game passing in the air, and we've really tried to emphasize the run game more against Monroe and against Navy. We're rushing about 5 more times on average per game than this prior year, but we're not even as successful as we were in 2023. So UAB is averaging just over 4 yards a carry compared to last year. It was about 4.5 yards a carry. Penalties, we talked about that specifically in this game. UAB is averaging 10 penalties for close to 90 yards, penalty yards per game. And that's up from last year, which was about 6.5 penalties, 60 yards per game. And we talked about turnovers earlier. UAB is not forcing turnovers. Last year, they were pretty good at forcing fumbles. And this year, UAB is -6 in the turnover margin. And then one really alarming statistic is touchdown conversion percentage. So this season, the UAB offense is scoring on 31% of opportunities when they reach the red zone. That's a 20% drop from 2023. And unfortunately, opposing offenses are scoring 67% of the time when they reach the red zone. That's a 15% increase from 2023. And even that 31% number for the UAB offense, if you take the Alcorn State game out of there, that's 22%. 22% of the time, UAB, when they're getting in the red zone or finishing that drive with a touchdown. Now, we know, shout out again to our special teams, are converting on field goals, but the field goals haven't been enough to offset the fact that we're allowing as many touchdowns as we are when opponents get in the red zone. So anyways, I just wanted to share those stats because I was looking at them this morning just to give you an idea, kind of like trends in comparison to what we have available to us now. And as you look at those trends, some things that just really have to improve for UAB to turn the corner and start winning some games.
Well said. Just quick last thoughts on this Navy game in particular. Again, this Navy team is a good team. I mean, and they have an explosive offense. But I'm obviously I'm not a coach. I've never coached college football. You bring up the Jonah. Hey, shout out 1 of 1. Kicked a field goal. Really, it was 2 for 2 because that he made the first one, but right before the snap, I think Trent Dilfer called a timeout, and I was like, "Is he about to ice his own kicker?" And I was like, now for those that are just watching on TV, I think an airplane like just went above this, so maybe he was timeout, let the airplane go due to wind or whatever. But that was frustrating. All of these penalties are just super frustrating, and I just don't understand it. I do not know what the answer is. But this team is just bad right now. I mean, call a spade a spade. This team is bad. 1-3. You were really only competitive in one of those losses, to Arkansas. And I mean, like Darian said earlier, I mean, the Arkansas game is just proven to be an anomaly. I mean, obviously we'll see what happens this Saturday. Is a really good Tulane team, that just killed South Florida 45-10 yesterday, coming to Protective Stadium. We'll wrap up this episode, Navy game recap, and we'll be probably Wednesday or Thursday here to preview the Tulane game as Tulane comes to Protective Stadium. But as always, guys, thank you for the support. Everybody that supports the Blazer Victory podcast, thank you so much. But until next time, as always, just Blaze.